Hello there. Today I watched the new film, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and now I want to tell you about it. The Last Voyage of the Demeter is based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. It follows one portion of the novel, The Journey Across the Sea, and ends with a cliffhanger leading into the next portion of the story. It was written by Bragi F. Schutt and Zach Olkowitz, and directed by Andre Overdahl. There are minor deviations from the original, with the story being told from a different perspective, and including a couple of new characters. They don't change the plot lines or the vibe, but they do change a few elements in how it played out. The film is 2 hours long and starts off with the destroyed ship Demeter reaching the shores of England. Policemen there search the wreckage and find the captain's log. Then the film rewinds time and takes us back to before the ship was destroyed. From then on, the story is narrated through Captain Elliot's voice. The story is a simple yet terrifying venture into the world of Dracula. It introduces us to the characters aboard the ship, gives us a brief explanation about where it's going and the cargo it's hauling, and then quickly dives into the action. Things start off with bad omens and suspicious characters, but quickly escalate to massacred livestock and the first of the crew members' deaths. In between deaths, the film spends time with the characters, listening to their fears, watching them interact with each other, and discussing their impending doom. Over the course of the film, we don't learn much about the individuals on the ship or Dracula, but we learn enough to understand what's going on, and we spend enough time with the crew to start caring about their fate. The build up to each kill was incredibly tense, with them usually going outside at night for watch, hearing a strange noise, and going to investigate, only to be murdered in the most brutal of fashions. Dracula's kills are quick and painful, but a few times he toys with his victims and gets into their heads. He does speak a few lines here and there, but it's mostly mockingly repeating the characters' words back to them. The story is a little bit predictable, with the entire plot being given away in the title and reinforced in a little exposition crawl that plays at the beginning. This is the last voyage of the Demeter and its crew. It plays out in a similar fashion to the novel, with Dracula hiding away for most of the journey, and picking them off one by one, but takes a bit of a turn toward the end when the humans put up a fight. I found the story to be a little bit simplistic, but also quite enjoyable. It doesn't waste time on useless information, and it does a great job of building and releasing tension throughout the film. The characters are all generally likable, average people, and it's easy to root for them against Dracula of all people. It doesn't get bogged down in overcomplicated backstories for Dracula or any of its characters, and yet it still gives you enough clues to piece together all you need to know, and leaves you wanting more. It is fantastical by nature, so you do have to give it some leeway, but it follows its own rules and is filled with dreadful excitement. The cast is full of strong actors that are somewhat limited by the nature of the story. It's stoic sailors facing off against a supernatural evil that they can't see, hear, or fight against. So, naturally, they're terrified and resort to anger, betrayal, and madness when faced with such an impossible foe. The best performances come from David Dastmalchian, Liam Cunningham, and Corey Dawkins. Dastmalchian plays the first mate of the ship and an honest man with a stern hand and a mistrust of others. He's bigoted toward the Doctor at first, but begrudgingly changes his mind after seeing him in action. When the horror first begins on the ship, he's skeptical of its true nature and fights to keep control of the crew. When it finally reveals himself to them all, he's shaken by it and left terrified, but still attempts to fight against it. Dastmalchian is a strong presence on the ship and makes a good impression in the film. Corey Hawkins plays Clemens, the newest member of the crew and the only Doctor. He's a man of science, so he doesn't believe the stories when presented with whispers of Dracula. He sees it as a mad beast and desperately looks for answers. He's protective of others and good to children. Hawkins plays him as a quiet, heroic type, but also does well with monologues, action scenes, and emotions. Cunningham doesn't get as much time as the other two, but he gets to play out a much more tragic story with bigger emotions involved. His character has more to lose on this trip than anyone, and he ends up going through a big moment of emotional turmoil. He plays the emotions beautifully: sadness, the madness, and the acceptance. The three of them perform well and even stand out a bit, but the lack of character development keeps them from being truly amazing performances. The rest of the cast does a fine job of their fear reactions, some of them even exceptional, but they don't get to do much more than that. Their characters are less developed than the three main ones, and the remaining screen time is split evenly between them. Visually, this film takes place on a boat and in two small towns. There's one scene by the shoreline of England in the beginning, and shortly after that, there's a scene of them departing Romania from a port town. Aside from that, everything takes place on the Demeter itself. It's an old wooden ship with three main areas: the cargo hold, the upper decks, and the living quarters. The film makes use of most of the ship, though the kills tend to happen up top. They did a great job of the visual journey, building up the tension through the spooky atmosphere on the ship, filling the surrounding area with fog at night to make it hard to see, and using short, quick edits for the attacks. Dracula moves quickly and ends his targets brutally. He attacks like an animal, clawing and biting at his foes, and the humans who survive begin the terrifying process of becoming thralls. Their skin turns gray, their minds go blank, and they start to attack their fellows without rhyme or reason. The best part is when they come into contact with the sun and spontaneously combust. The scenes of them burning are horrifying to see. Dracula himself appears as a monstrous human with wings, ashen skin, large fangs, and glowing yellow eyes. He mostly appears in the shadows, and we don't see him directly that often. But when we do see him, he does have a more beast-like appearance than the original. The visual journey was easy to follow, had a great atmosphere, and had a ton of standout visual jump scares. The soundtrack is made up of orchestral scored instrumentals that follow the story and its emotions to the finest details, and prop up most of the film. The music ranges from tense atmospheric music to full-on classical epics that dominate the space and make each cinematic beat feel unique. The best parts are during the big climactic moments when the music kicks in and starts carrying the story. It does a ton of heavy lifting during the few emotional moments in the film, and helps make Dracula into a terrifying villain. There are moments when it isn't properly mixed and it comes off too loud. During these, it competes with the dialogue a little bit, but it doesn't happen enough to be a real distraction. Overall, I enjoyed The Last Voyage of the Demeter even if it was predictable. The atmosphere was great, the soundtrack is doing a lot of work, cast is fantastic in their fear reactions, and we get some great jump scares. It's not trying anything new, but it is a well done film that dips into the world of monsters. If you enjoy a good horror film with decent production value, give this one a shot. As for a rating, I'd give this film an 8 out of 10, and remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye bye!